My husband said, "Your family drama isn't my problem," when my sister needed help, so I used those exact words after he found out about his brother. The call came at 2 a.m., my sister sobbing, barely coherent. Her ex had shown up drunk, broken down the door. She'd barricaded herself in the bathroom with her 2-year-old daughter while he destroyed everything she owned. I shook Garrett awake, already pulling on clothes. "We need to go get her. Now." He rolled over, didn't even open his eyes. "Your family drama isn't my problem, Reese. Handle it yourself." Those 7 words rewired something fundamental in me. For 6 years, I'd been the devoted wife. When his mother needed cancer treatments 3 hours away, I drove her weekly. When his cousin lost his job, we housed him for 4 months. When his father's business failed, we emptied our savings. But my sister bleeding in a bathroom? Not his problem. I drove alone through darkness, found her crouched behind a shattered door. Police lights, statements, emergency room for stitches. I moved them into our guest room while Garrett complained about the noise disrupting his sleep. For 3 weeks, I watched him treat them like unwelcome intruders. He'd slam cabinets when my niece cried, roll his eyes when my sister flinched at sudden movements. Once, he actually said she probably provoked her ex. That's when I started noticing things. The password-protected phone, evening meetings that suddenly required cologne, unexplained hotel charges during his supposed golf weekends. I didn't confront him. I documented everything. Then his brother Nolan called, arrested for embezzlement, $400,000 from his company's pension fund. He needed bail money, a lawyer, somewhere to hide from the reporters camping outside. Garrett was frantic. "We have to help him. He's family." I sipped my coffee, scrolled through my phone. "Your family drama isn't my problem." His face went through several colors. "You can't be serious. This is different." "How exactly?" "He's facing prison. His kids will suffer." My sister faced death. Her kid was traumatized. "That's not the same." "You're right. She was actually a victim." He begged for 2 days straight, called me heartless, selfish, vindictive. The same energy he couldn't muster when my sister needed shelter, he now poured into his brother's defense. I might have caved. Old habits die hard. But then I found the email. Not about his affair. Though yes, there was one. The email was from Nolan to Garrett, dated 3 months ago. About a joint investment account I'd never heard of. An account funded with money Garrett had been siphoning from our retirement. The same account Nolan had used for his embezzlement scheme. My husband wasn't just unsympathetic. He was complicit. I forwarded everything to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, then discovered something worse at our bank. The mortgage I thought we'd been paying? Garrett had refinanced without my knowledge, forging my signature. My grandmother's house now leveraged to fund their criminal enterprise. That evening, I served him divorce papers with his dinner. "You can't do this," he sputtered. "I need you. The investigation. Your family drama isn't my problem." He grabbed my wrist, hard enough to bruise. "You don't understand what you're doing. These people Nolan owes. They don't care who pays. Then you better figure it out." I moved my sister and niece into my grandmother's house that night, the one I was fighting to save. Garrett sent 47 texts. Threats, pleas, promises of change. Next morning, I woke to find my tires slashed. Security footage showed a hooded man, but I knew Garrett's build, his walk. Then my sister's ex was mysteriously released on bail. Anonymous benefactor. Garrett's text came at noon. "Reconsider your position." I was photographing the slashed tires when a black sedan pulled up. The man who emerged wore an expensive suit, a pleasant smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Lawson, we need to discuss your husband's obligations." "Former husband," I corrected. He smiled wider. "That's what we need to talk about. You see, in our business, family debts don't end with paperwork." Behind me, my sister called my name from the house. My niece's laughter echoed from the garden. The man followed my gaze. "Beautiful family. Would be a shame if..." I pulled out my phone without breaking eye contact. "Funny thing about security cameras," I said. "They record audio too. Every word you just said, already uploaded to 3 different cloud servers, time-stamped, geotagged." His smile faltered. "And those photos I just took of my tires? Already with the FBI agent handling Garrett's case. Special Agent Morrison. Want his number? I have him on speed dial now." The man's jaw tightened. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "No," I said. "Garrett made this hard when he stole from his own brother's company, when he forged my signature, when he dragged me into his mess without my knowledge or consent." I stepped closer, felt something shift in my spine. I worked in the prosecutor's office for 3 years before I stupidly quit to support his career. I know exactly how to document evidence, how to build a case, and how to make sure every interaction with you and your associates is admissible in court. Behind him, a second car pulled up. My neighbor, Doug, retired police chief, stepped out with his German Shepherd. "Everything okay, Reese?" The man in the suit glanced between us. "We were just leaving," he said smoothly. "But Mrs. Lawson should know. Debts have a way of following people. So do federal investigations," I replied, "especially into loan sharking and extortion, which is what this conversation just became." He drove away, but I knew this wasn't over. That afternoon, I called a lawyer my old boss had recommended. Patricia Chen had a reputation for destroying powerful men who underestimated her. She listened to everything, made notes in sharp, angry strokes. "The mortgage fraud alone could get him 5 years, she said. "But with the embezzlement connection, we're looking at a RICO case. The FBI's already building something. What about the people he owes?" She leaned back, studied me. "How brave are you feeling?" Turns out, very brave. Or maybe just done caring about my own safety when my family was at risk. Patricia connected me with Agent Morrison, who'd been investigating Nolan's embezzlement. Apparently, Garrett's financial records had raised red flags, but they needed more. "We need someone on the inside," Morrison said. "Someone Garrett trusts." "He doesn't trust me anymore." No, but he needs you. The plan was simple. Terrifying, but simple. I'd meet Garrett wearing a wire and get him to talk about the money, about Nolan, about the people they owed. My sister begged me not to do it. What if something goes wrong? She said, pacing our grandmother's kitchen. What if they hurt you? Then they hurt me, I said. But at least you and Ivy will be safe. We met at the coffee shop where we'd had our first date 9 years ago. Garrett looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles, hands shaking slightly as he stirred his coffee. Thank you for coming, he said. I didn't respond. Reese, I know I've made mistakes. Mistakes? I interrupted. You stole my inheritance. You helped your brother steal from hundreds of people. You forged my signature. I can explain, then explain. And he did. It started small, he claimed. Nolan had a sheer investment. Needed seed money. Garrett convinced himself he was helping family, that they'd pay everything back before I noticed. But the investment was a scam. Suddenly they owed dangerous people large sums of money. Nolan panicked, started stealing from his company. Garrett refinanced the house thinking he could fix everything. I was trying to protect you, he said. By lying to me, by putting my family in danger, I had no choice. You had every choice. You chose to steal. You chose to forge documents. You chose to threaten me when I wouldn't save you from your own stupidity. His face hardened. Those men who came to the house? They're not playing games, Reese. They'll hurt anyone close to me. Anyone close to Nolan. Then maybe you should tell the FBI about them. His eyes widened. You're wearing a wire. I didn't move. He lunged across the table, grabbed my collar. The coffee cup shattered on the floor. People around us gasped, scattered. You stupid bitch, he hissed. Do you have any idea what you've done? 2 agents materialized from the counter, pulled him off me. I sat frozen, my shirt torn, coffee soaking into my jeans. Morrison helped me up. Got everything we needed, he said quietly. You did good. But I didn't feel good. I felt hollowed out. That night, curled up on grandmother's couch with my sister beside me, I finally cried. Not delicate tears. The ugly, choking kind that makes your whole body heave. I loved him, I whispered. I really loved him. My sister held me tighter. I know. How did I not see it? Because he's a liar. A really good one. She was right. Garrett had been performing for years. The devoted husband, the family man, all while stealing and lying and pulling me into his criminal web. The next few weeks blurred together. Garrett was arrested, charged with mortgage fraud, conspiracy to commit embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. Nolan got 20 years. The FBI dismantled the loan shark operation, arrested 14 people. The affair? His secretary, predictably, 24 years old, genuinely shocked when agents showed up at her apartment. He said you were separated, she told me later, crying in a courthouse bathroom. He said you didn't care. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The divorce took 4 months. Garrett tried to claim he deserved half of grandmother's house despite forging documents against it. The judge laughed in his lawyer's face. Your client committed fraud, forgery, and threatened his wife. He's lucky I don't hold him in contempt for wasting this court's time. I got everything. The house. What was left of our savings. His car, which I immediately sold. My sister's ex went back to prison for violating his restraining order. Garrett's attempt to bail him out became evidence of witness intimidation. Poetic justice. But justice doesn't fix everything. I still woke up at 3 a.m., and heart racing, checking the security cameras. Still flinched when cars slowed in front of the house. Still felt phantom fingers around my wrist where Garrett had grabbed me. My sister noticed. You need to talk to someone, she said one morning, watching me check the locks for the 3rd time. I'm fine. No, you're not. And that's okay. She was right. I wasn't fine. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. Dr. Brennan had kind eyes and didn't push when I couldn't find words. Trauma doesn't follow a timeline, she said during our first session. You'll heal when you're ready. Weeks turned into months. My sister enrolled in night classes, working toward her associate degree. My niece started kindergarten, made friends, stopped flinching at loud noises. We built routines, Sunday pancakes, Thursday movie nights, Saturday farmer's market. Small, normal things that felt revolutionary after years of chaos. I went back to work, took a position at a victim advocacy nonprofit, used my legal background to help other women navigate divorce, restraining orders, custody battles. Every time I helped someone escape, I healed a little more. 1 year after serving Garrett divorce papers, I stood in front of the courthouse where it all ended. The building looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. My phone rang. Unknown number. Reese Lawson? Speaking. This is Officer Patterson with the State Corrections Department. I'm calling to inform you that Garrett Lawson has been transferred to federal prison. His sentence was extended to 12 years for additional charges. 12 years. He'd be 56 when he got out. I thanked the officer and hung up. Felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger. Just nothing. Maybe that was healing too. My sister found me sitting on a bench outside the courthouse. You okay? They extended his sentence. She sat beside me. Good. We watched people come and go. Lawyers in sharp suits, families holding hands, life continuing despite everything. You know what's weird? I said. I don't hate him anymore. That's not weird. I spent months furious. Wanted him to suffer. Now I just don't care. My sister squeezed my hand. That means you're done carrying him. You put that weight down. She was right. For 6 years, I'd carried Garrett. His ego, his career, his family obligations. Then I'd carried my anger at him, my betrayal, my fear. Now, I was done carrying anything that wasn't mine. We drove home, picked up Ivy from school. She ran to us, backpack bouncing, face bright. Aunt Reese, I got a gold star in reading. I scooped her up. That's amazing. Should we celebrate with ice cream? Can we get the kind with cookie dough? Obviously. Later that night, after Ivy was asleep and my sister was studying at the kitchen table, I stood in grandmother's garden. The roses she'd planted 40 years ago were blooming, filling the air with perfume. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, my lawyer. Garrett's assets have been liquidated. You're getting a settlement check. Should arrive next week. It's substantial. I stared at the message. Blood money, basically. Garrett's 401k, his share of his parents' estate, everything he'd hidden. I could pay off the house, set up college funds for Ivy, finally take that vacation my sister kept mentioning. But first, I called my old boss from the prosecutor's office. Reese, long time. How are you? Better. Listen, I have a proposition. How would you feel about funding a legal clinic specifically for domestic violence survivors? Full legal representation, no cost to clients. Silence. Then, how much funding are we talking about? Enough to change lives. She laughed, the sound bright and sharp. When can we meet? The Lawson Legal Clinic opened 6 months later in a renovated historic building downtown. We hired 3 full-time attorneys, 2 paralegals, and a victim advocate. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, I stood in front of a room full of people, survivors, advocates, officials, and told my story. Not all of it. The parts that mattered. I stood where you're standing, I said. Scared. Alone. Wondering if getting out was even possible. I caught my sister's eye. She nodded encouragement. Someone once told me that family drama wasn't their problem, that my pain didn't matter. But here's what I learned. Your pain matters. Your survival matters. Your future matters. I gestured to the clinic behind me. This place exists because we refuse to accept that anyone's trauma is just drama. We refuse to let people suffer alone. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 22, holding a baby. Mrs. Lawson, I just wanted to say thank you. I saw your interview in the paper. My husband, She didn't need to finish. I knew that look, that fear. Come by tomorrow, I said gently. We'll figure this out together. She nodded, tears streaming. I didn't know where else to go. Now you do. She left with my card, my direct number, and something I recognized. Hope. That night, my sister made celebratory lasagna. Ivy insisted on setting the table with grandmother's good china. This is fancy, she announced, carefully placing forks. It's a special occasion, my sister said. What are we celebrating? I looked around grandmother's kitchen, at my sister, healthy, and pursuing her dreams. At my niece, safe and thriving. At this life we'd built from ashes and determination. Everything, I said. We're celebrating everything. 3 years passed. The clinic helped over 400 people escape dangerous situations. We expanded twice, hired more staff, started outreach programs. My sister graduated with her associate degree, then kept going. Bachelor's in social work. She joined the clinic staff, using her own experience to help others. Ivy turned 8, joined soccer, developed an obsession with dinosaurs. I bought a small house near the clinic, kept grandmother's place for my sister and Ivy. Dated occasionally, nothing serious. Focused on healing, on building something meaningful. Then one morning I opened the clinic to find Garrett's mother sitting in the waiting room. I almost turned around and walked out. Reese, she said standing, please, just 5 minutes. I hadn't seen her since the divorce. She'd sided with Garrett naturally. Called me vindictive, accused me of destroying her family. Now she looked old, tired. What do you want? To apologize. I laughed, bitter. Bit late for that. I know, but I need to say it anyway. She twisted her hands. When Garrett was arrested, I thought you'd set him up, that you'd exaggerated everything. I know what you thought. You testified for his defense. I was wrong. Her voice cracked. I visited him last month, first time in 2 years. He's different. Prison stripped away whatever mask he'd been wearing. And he told me everything. The real everything. Not just what he did to you, but to others. Women he'd manipulated, money he'd stolen, lives he'd destroyed. She wiped her eyes. My son is a monster, and I enabled him. I wanted to feel vindicated. Instead, I just felt exhausted. Why are you telling me this? Because I read about your clinic, about all the people you're helping, and I realized you turned your pain into something beautiful, while I turned mine into cruelty. She pulled an envelope from her purse. This is from Garrett's late father's estate. My portion. I want to donate it to the clinic. I stared at the check inside. 6 figures. I can't accept this. Please, it's blood money anyway. At least let it do some good. I thought about all the people we could help with this amount, the families we could save. I'll accept it on one condition. Anything. You volunteer here. 10 hours a week. You sit with survivors and hear their stories. You understand exactly what men like your son destroy. She flinched. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Neither did I. We figure it out anyway. She volunteered every Tuesday and Thursday for the next year. Listened to stories that broke her heart. Held hands with women who reminded her of me. She never missed a shift. On her last day, she was moving to be near her daughter in Oregon. She hugged me. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Thank you for showing up. I can't undo what I enabled, but maybe I balanced the scales a little. Maybe you did. After she left, I found a note on her desk. Some families are born. Some are chosen. Thank you for letting me glimpse the kind you've built. It's beautiful. I kept that note. 4 years after everything fell apart, I stood in grandmother's garden at sunset. The roses were in full bloom, their scent heavy in the summer air. My sister joined me, 2 glasses of wine in hand. Ivy's asleep. Finally, she fought it. Epic battle. I won by agreeing to let her wear her dinosaur costume to school tomorrow. We sipped wine, watched the sky turn purple and gold. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? My sister asked quietly. Sometimes. But then I remember who we were before, who we're becoming now. We're survivors. More than that, we're builders. She raised her glass. To building better lives on the ruins of worse ones. To rising from the ashes, I added. We drank, watched night fall over grandmother's garden. My phone buzzed. A text from one of our clinic clients. Divorce finalized today. Starting my new life tomorrow. Thank you for showing me I deserved better. I showed my sister. She smiled through sudden tears. That's why we do this. That's why we survived. So others could too. We stayed in the garden until stars appeared. Talked about everything and nothing. Made plans for the future. Later, alone in my own house, I pulled out a box from my closet. Inside were remnants of my old life. Wedding photos. Anniversary cards. The promise ring Garrett gave me. I'd kept them, unsure why. Now I knew. I needed to see how far I'd come. The woman in those photos looked happy. She was happy in the way people are when they don't know better, when they haven't been tested yet. I wasn't that woman anymore. I was harder now, sharper, but also more real. I'd learned that love without respect is just pretty packaging around poison. That family isn't always blood. That sometimes the people who promise to protect you are the ones you need protection from. But I'd also learned that survival is a skill. That strength grows in broken places. That you can build something beautiful from ashes if you're willing to do the work. I threw the box away. Didn't need those memories anymore. 5 years after serving Garrett divorce papers, I received an invitation to speak at a national conference on domestic violence prevention. 2,000 attendees. Major media coverage. The night before my speech, I couldn't sleep. Kept rewriting my opening, questioning whether I had the right to represent anyone but myself. At 2 a.m., my sister called. Can't sleep either? How did you know? Because I know you. You're worried you're not enough, that your story isn't important. What if I fail everyone who's counting on me? Then you fail. And try again. That's what we do. She was right. The next morning, I walked onto that stage terrified, looked out at 2,000 faces, started talking, told them about the night my sister called, about Garrett's cruelty, about the moment I chose myself over fear, told them about the legal battle, the threats, the darkness, but also about the light, the clinic, the lives we'd change. Leaving isn't weakness, I said. Staying in a toxic situation because you're afraid of what comes next, that's the real trap. I saw people nodding, crying, taking notes. Someone once told me my pain wasn't their problem. They were right. It was my problem, and I was the only one who could solve it. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, people lined up to share their stories, to ask advice, to simply say thank you. A woman in her 50s gripped my hands. I've been married for 32 years. He's never hit me, but he's killing me anyway. Then it's time to save yourself. I'm afraid. Good. Fear means you're alive. Use it. She nodded, something shifting in her expression. That night, 17 people contacted our clinic asking for help. 17 lives we might save. 6 years after everything changed, I woke up on my 40th birthday. My sister and Ivy decorated the house with streamers and balloons, made pancakes shaped like numbers, sang off-key. You're old now, Ivy announced seriously. Thanks, kid. But the good kind of old, like dinosaurs. My sister laughed so hard she snorted orange juice. After breakfast, they gave me a present, a photo album. Inside were pictures from the last 6 years. The clinic opening, my sister's graduation, Ivy's soccer games, beach trips, holiday dinners, ordinary moments that felt extraordinary because we'd fought for them. The last page had a photo of the 3 of us in grandmother's garden, laughing at something I couldn't remember. Below it, in my sister's handwriting, family isn't who you're born to, it's who you choose to become. I cried. Happy tears this time. That afternoon, I drove to the cemetery where grandmother was buried, sat beside her headstone. Hey, Grandma. Sorry it's been a while. Wind rustled through the trees. I kept your house. Your roses are beautiful this year. And I finally understand what you meant when you said a woman's strength isn't in accepting things, but in changing them. I traced her name carved in stone. Thank you for showing me that, for giving me a foundation to build on, for believing I deserved better even when I didn't believe it myself. I stayed until sunset, telling her about the clinic, about my sister's accomplishments, about Ivy's latest dinosaur facts, told her about Garrett's sentencing, about choosing forgiveness over bitterness, told her I was okay. Finally, truly okay. 7 years after my divorce was finalized, I received a letter, prison envelope, Garrett's handwriting. I almost threw it away without reading, but something made me open it. Inside was a single page. Reese, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that every day in here I think about what I destroyed. Not the money or the house. Us. The person you trusted. The partnership we could have had. You were right about everything. I was a coward. A thief. A manipulator. Prison stripped away my ability to lie to myself. Now I see what I really was. A man so afraid of not measuring up that I destroyed the one person who actually believed in me. I heard about your clinic. About the lives you're changing. I'm glad my destruction led to something good, even if I had nothing to do with it. I won't contact you again. This isn't about absolution, just acknowledgement. You deserved so much better than me. Gee, I read it twice. Felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no lingering pain, just nothing. I showed it to my sister. How do you feel? She asked. Indifferent. That's powerful, is it? Think about it. He spent years making you feel small. Now you don't feel anything about him at all. You took away his power completely. She was right. I filed the letter away. Not to keep, but because it was evidence of a journey completed. I'd started as a woman who defined herself through marriage, through service to someone who didn't value her. I'd become someone who defined herself through action, through building something meaningful from rubble. That transformation was mine, not his. 8 years after everything fell apart, the clinic celebrated helping its 1,000th family. We threw a party, invited current and former clients, staff, volunteers. The room overflowed with survivors turned thrivers. I looked around at faces I'd come to know, stories I'd witnessed, people who'd left abusive relationships, found jobs, rebuilt credit, reclaimed custody, finished degrees, started businesses, an entire community of people refusing to let trauma define them. My sister gave a speech about the importance of solidarity, about how we're stronger together. Then she called me up. 8 years ago, my big sister saved my life, she said, voice steady despite tears. She drove through the night, held my hand in the emergency room, gave me a safe place to fall apart. She turned to me, but she did more than that. She showed me that survival isn't just existing, it's thriving in spite of everything that tried to kill us. The room erupted in applause. I hugged her tight, whispered, "We saved each other." "Yeah," she said, "we did." That night, after everyone left and the cleanup was done, I stood alone in the clinic's main room. This building, this organization, these lives we'd touched, all of it grew from the worst moment of my existence. From pain, I'd built purpose. From betrayal, I'd built trust. From destruction, I'd built a foundation. The old Reese, the one who measured her worth through her husband's approval, wouldn't recognize me now. That woman was soft in the wrong places, kind to people who didn't deserve it, silent when she should have screamed. This version of me was different. Harder, yes, but also whole. I locked up the clinic, drove home through streets I'd learned to navigate alone. My house was dark and quiet. Empty, but not lonely. I'd learned the difference. Loneliness is feeling incomplete without someone else. Solitude is feeling complete within yourself. I'd worked hard for that distinction. 10 years after serving Garrett divorce papers, I attended his parole hearing, not to speak against him, not to see him suffer, but to witness the closing of that chapter. He walked in wearing prison orange, looking older than his 53 years. Gray hair, defeated posture. Our eyes met briefly. He nodded once. I nodded back. Nothing more needed. The parole board reviewed his case, his crimes, his rehabilitation efforts. They asked if he understood the harm he'd caused. "I destroyed lives," he said quietly. "My wife's, my brother's victims, my own family's. I blamed everyone but myself for years. But I did this. Me. And no amount of sorry will undo it." They asked about his plans if released. "I have a job lined up at a nonprofit. Minimum wage. I'll be living in a halfway house, paying restitution for the rest of my life." He paused. "I can't fix what I broke. But maybe I can avoid breaking anything else." The board deliberated privately. Granted parole, he'd be out in 60 days. As people filed out, Garrett approached me. Guards stood close. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I came for me, not you." "I know." He looked at the floor. "I heard about your work, the people you've helped." "Good." I wanted to say, "Don't." I interrupted. "We're not doing this. We're not having some redemptive moment where you apologize, and I grant forgiveness, and we both walk away healed." His jaw tightened. "Then why did you come?" "To remind myself why I left, to see the man I almost let destroy me reduced to exactly what he deserved, to close this door permanently." I turned to leave. "Reese," he called. I stopped, didn't turn around. "I'm glad you got out. Glad you built something better." "I know," I said. "That's what makes it all worth it." I walked away and didn't look back. Outside, the sun was bright and warm. My phone buzzed. My sister. "How'd it go?" "It's over." "Good. Dinner at our place tonight? Ivy wants to show you her science project. I'll be there." I drove to grandmother's house where my sister and Ivy still lived. Found them in the garden, Ivy explaining plant photosynthesis with the intense focus only a 10-year-old could muster. "And then the chlorophyll absorbs the light," she exclaimed, gesturing wildly. My sister caught my eye, smiled. "This," I thought. "This is what I fought for. Not revenge, not vindication, but this garden, this family, this peace." We ate dinner on the porch as fireflies emerged, told stories, laughed until our sides hurt. Ivy fell asleep on my lap, exhausted from her presentation. "She adores you," my sister said softly. "The feeling's mutual. You know what's amazing? She'll grow up never knowing what we escaped. To her, this is just normal life. That's the gift, isn't it? Breaking cycles so the next generation doesn't have to. We did that. Together." I looked at my sister. Strong, educated, thriving. Yeah, we did. Later, driving home, I thought about the woman I'd been a decade ago. Desperate to please. Willing to ignore red flags. Measuring my worth through someone else's approval. She'd been so afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of failing. Afraid of the unknown. But she'd done it anyway. She'd left. She'd survived. She'd built something extraordinary. And in doing so, she'd discovered something crucial. The scariest moment is always right before you start. After that, it's just one foot in front of the other until you realize you've walked miles. 12 years after everything changed, I stood in front of a new building, the Lawson Center for Family Justice. We'd expanded beyond legal services. Now we offered counseling, job training, transitional housing, childcare, a full support system for people escaping abuse. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was packed. Local officials, donors, news crews, but most importantly, survivors. People who'd walked through our doors broken and emerged whole. When it was my turn to speak, I looked out at the crowd. Someone asked me once if I ever regretted leaving my marriage. I said, if I missed the stability, the partnership, the life I'd built. I paused, let the question hang. Here's what I told them. I don't miss the person who told me my pain wasn't his problem, but I'm grateful to him, because that single moment of cruelty led me here. To all of you. To this. I gestured to the building behind me. We build temples on battlefields. We plant gardens in ruins. We turn our worst moments into our greatest purpose. That's not just survival. That's alchemy. The crowd erupted. Afterward, a young woman approached. maybe 25, holding a toddler. Mrs. Lawson, I came through your clinic 4 years ago. You helped me escape my husband. I remember, I said, and I did. She'd arrived with nothing but her daughter and a broken arm. I wanted to show you something. She pulled out her phone, showed me photos. A college graduation, a new apartment, a job acceptance letter. I got my degree in social work, started working at a crisis center last month. Because of you. Because of you, I corrected. I just opened the door. You walked through it. She hugged me tight, her daughter sandwiched between us. Thank you for showing me I could. These moments. These were why I'd survive, not for revenge or vindication, but to light the path for others still stumbling in darkness. That night I returned to my own house. Small, quiet, mine, made tea, sat on the back porch, watched stars emerge. My phone rang. Unknown number. Usually I didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Reese Lawson? A man's voice. Unfamiliar. Speaking. My name is Vincent Hardy. I'm calling about Garrett Lawson. My stomach dropped. What about him? He listed you as his emergency contact. There's been an accident. 2 days later, I stood in a hospital room. Garrett lay unconscious, machines beeping rhythmically. Car accident, drunk driver, 50-50 chance of survival. I'd come because, honestly, I didn't know why. Closure? Curiosity? Some lingering thread I needed to cut? A doctor entered, reviewed charts. Are you his wife? Ex-wife. He doesn't have any other family listed. His brother is in federal prison. The doctor nodded, understanding passing across his face. If he wakes up, he'll need extensive rehabilitation. Someone will need to make medical decisions. That's not me. You're all he has. I looked at the man in the hospital bed. Once I'd loved him desperately. Would have done anything for him. Now he was just a stranger who taught me everything I needed to know about who not to be. I'll sign whatever paperwork says I'm not responsible, I told the doctor, but I won't make his choices for him. Even unconscious, he doesn't get to trap me again. The doctor looked uncomfortable but nodded. I started to leave, paused, turned back to Garrett's unconscious form. I forgive you, I said quietly, not because you earned it, but because I'm done carrying you. I walked out and never came back. 15 years after my divorce, I published a book, Beautiful Ruins, Building Purpose from Pain. It detailed my journey, the betrayal, the survival, the building of something meaningful. But more than that, it was a roadmap for others. How to recognize emotional abuse, how to document evidence, how to leave safely, how to rebuild after loss. The book became a bestseller. I did a tour, spoke to packed auditoriums, signed books for hours. Every person who came through the line had a story. Some were still trapped, some were planning their escape, some were years out thriving. All of them were survivors. In Portland, a woman in her 60s approached with tears streaming. I left my husband after 43 years because of your book, she said. I thought it was too late to start over. You showed me it never is. In Atlanta, a young man thanked me. My mom was stuck. She thought she deserved what she got. I gave her your book. She left last month. In Chicago, a teenager. I watched my dad hurt my mom my whole life. Your book taught me that's not love. That's not what I want to become. Each story reinforced why I'd written it, why I'd exposed my pain publicly. Because silence protects abusers. Truth protects victims. 20 years after everything changed, I stood in grandmother's garden on my 52nd birthday. My sister was inside making dinner. Ivy, now 22, was bringing her new girlfriend to meet us. The clinic had helped over 5,000 families. The center provided comprehensive services to hundreds more. My book had inspired 3 documentaries and a congressional hearing on economic abuse. I'd rebuilt my life so thoroughly that sometimes the old version felt like fiction. That scared girl who couldn't sleep without checking locks? She was still here, always would be. But she didn't run my life anymore. I did. As the sun set, painting the sky in purples and golds, Ivy burst through the garden gate. Aunt Reese! She hugged me tight, her girlfriend hanging back shyly. This is Cameron, Ivy said, beaming. Cameron stepped forward nervous. It's an honor to meet you, Ms. Lawson. Ivy talks about you constantly. Your work is incredible. Call me Reese. And thank you. We went inside where my sister had cooked enough food for an army. Around the table, we laughed and told stories. Cameron fit in instantly, her hand finding Ivy's under the table. After dinner, as we cleared plates, Ivy pulled me aside. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret how your life turned out? Like, if you could go back and change things? I thought about that woman 2 decades ago. The one who thought love meant sacrifice. Who stayed silent to keep peace. Not for a second, I said. Everything I survived led me here. To this family, this work, this life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Ivy hugged me. I'm glad you survived. Me too, kid. Me too. That night, alone in my house, I opened a drawer I rarely accessed. Inside was a small box, the one I'd thrown away years ago but couldn't quite destroy. I pulled out the wedding photo, looked at that girl in white, smiling at a man who would eventually betray her. Thank you, I whispered to her, for being brave enough to leave, for refusing to accept less than you deserved, for saving us both. I put the photo back, not to forget, but to remember how far I'd come. 25 years after serving Garrett divorce papers, I received news that he'd died. Heart attack, 64 years old. His parole officer called, asking if I wanted to claim the body. No, I said simply. There was a pause. He wrote you a letter, years ago. Left it with me in case anything happened. Should I mail it? Burn it, I said. Whatever he needed to say doesn't matter anymore. Another pause. For what it's worth, he spent his last years volunteering, helping other men understand what they'd done to their families. He tried to be better. Good for him, I said, and meant it. Not because I forgave him, but because his redemption or lack thereof had nothing to do with me anymore. I hung up, sat with the news for a moment, felt peace. The chapter had truly closed. I called my sister. Garrett died. Oh, how do you feel? Free. She laughed softly. You've been free for 25 years. I know. But now it's official. We talked for an hour about everything and nothing. About Ivy's new job at a victim advocacy organization. About my sister's retirement from the clinic after 2 decades of service. About the granddaughter neither of us expected. About life continuing despite everything. 30 years after everything changed, I stood at the podium to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award for my work in family justice. The auditorium was packed. Thousands of faces. So many stories. So much survival. When I was 34 years old, I began. I learned that my worth wasn't determined by who loved me, but by who I chose to become when that love was stripped away. I told them the abbreviated version. The call at 2 a.m. The man who said my family drama wasn't his problem. The decision to leave. To fight. To build. That moment of cruelty became my catalyst. I said. It taught me that we don't have to accept other people's assessments of our value. We get to decide that ourselves. I looked out at the crowd. Every person in this room has survived something, has overcome, has rebuilt. You are the reason this work matters. You are the proof that survival is possible. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. Afterward, hundreds of people lined up to share stories, to say thank you, to simply be seen. The last person in line was a woman in her 80s. I've been waiting 60 years to leave my husband, she said. After tonight, I'm finally doing it. What changed? I asked. You said we get to decide our own value. I just realized mine is more than his cruelty. I hugged her tight. You deserve every good thing. So do you, she whispered back. Later, exhausted but fulfilled, I sat in my hotel room, looked at my phone, messages from hundreds of people, from my sister, from Ivy, from clients and colleagues and survivors, from people whose lives had been touched by work that started with one terrible night and one simple decision. I deserve better than this. That thought, that single moment of clarity, had sparked everything else. It had led me here, to this life, this purpose, this peace. I thought about the woman I'd been at 34, desperate, scared, convinced she couldn't survive alone. If I could go back and tell her one thing, it would be this. You're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to take this pain and turn it into something that saves thousands of people. You're going to build a family from ashes. You're going to discover strength you didn't know existed. But I couldn't go back. So instead, I'd spend the rest of my life telling other people still trapped in that darkness. You're going to be okay. You're going to survive this. You're going to thrive. And when you do, you'll look back and realize that the worst moment of your life was actually the first moment of your real one. Because sometimes, the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are, so you can become exactly who you're meant to be.